guys, it's Jesse. I just have a story I really want to share with you. I think that this is something I'm definitely supposed to share. Uh, I go to the VA hospital multiple times a week, and I usually, in between appointments or whatever I do, I have free time on my hands, and I always end up in the PX at some point. And so I go in the PX, and right when you walk in on the right, there's a book thing that spins, and you can spin it and see different books, and it's always like that's like the Christian section, if you will, in the PX. And I've never been much of a reader, never in my life, and I've always wanted to be. I've just never had the patience or the calmness to read and be in the moment, and that's always plagued me, man. And I saw this book, and I really felt like God was telling me, get this book, man. Don't think about it. And usually when it comes to books or financial or spending money, I'd be sitting there procrastinating, but I felt so strongly by getting the book. I got that thing, I paid for it. And once I got home that night, uh, this is the book. It's called The Complete Guide to the Bible. And once I got home that night, I opened this thing up, man, and it was just flowing out to me. Like the first, it talks about each book in the Bible. And like for Genesis, it talks about the main points, the writer, the date, the location. And even though, some people might know this right off the top of their head and everything, I've always had a hard time, whether it's the Bible or any long book or anything like that, to really focus and be able to put everything together and keep everything together while I'm reading long stories having to do with that. And with this, it kind of puts this humongous overview on Genesis, and it makes it so much easier to know where you're at, know who's talking, know who's writing, location, dates, and everything like that. So once I got home and read the Genesis portion of this book, I switched over to the Bible to start studying Genesis, and the most amazing thing happened, and I want to show it with you today. Show it with you. That's not right. I want to share it with you. Instead of editing back or starting over a 2.5-minute video, I'm going to roll with it. I want to share this with you. It's only 2 chapters, and it covers one of the most important stories in the Bible, and it's just such a short 2 chapters, but it covers so much in that 2 chapters. But anyway, I got through that, got to chapter 9, which saw the covenant after the flood. And as I was getting into 10, I really felt like God was telling me to go back and get back into the flood and really get back into the timeline of it. And so even though I wanted to keep going in Genesis and I was so excited, I go back to chapter 7. And as I go back to chapter 7, I really feel like I was supposed to come up with a timeline for the flood. And right off the bat, I'm the type of person, when something applies to me now, like 2019, it just jumps out at me. So I put the timeline starting this year. And when I did that, it just really jumped out to me, man. So the way I got it was, if you look through Genesis chapter 7 and 8, it just really gives a timeline. It will say 7 days later, 40 days, 40 nights, a year and a half, and it will just go through and give timeline after timeline of time in between events. So that's what I did. And for example, the way I did it was the event, the Bible verse, and the estimated date. So in Genesis 8:13, it says, Noah was now 601 years old. On the first day of the new year, 10.5 months after the flood began, the flood waters almost dried up from the earth. So the way I started my timeline, excuse the camera, was I did 10.5 months back from January 1st, 2020. And then I'm not going to go through every verse and everything I did because the video would be long. But that's how I came up with this timeline and with these events. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope that it motivates you to get into Genesis and double check what I found and see if it's accurate and correct. And if it's not, please let me know. I promise you're not going to hurt my feelings. And I'll be the first to admit it. Anybody with large books, Bible included, anybody else, it's hard for some people to study a large book, and I've always been one of those people, but I've always really tried to study the Bible, and this go around, it's been so much easier. And it started with the book that I bought, I told you, and it kind of got me, instead of everything kind of being scattered, it got me kind of zoned in a little bit on Genesis. And so far the study's going amazingly well, and the study of the flood went really well. So I hope this just mainly encourages you to get in your Bible. I know sometimes it can be hard with the world we live in and the distractions we live in, and the same applies to me. I'm not acting like I'm not any different, but I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and I hope you can get in those Bibles and get studying.